Welcome to Into the Chatterverse, where two gents share their 2 cents on pop media. I am Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill, and I'm not a hard worker at all.
I disagree. This entire setup has been your hard work, your labor, and I appreciate you. But you are a wonderful, wonderful person to chat with, and I'm super excited to get into what we're going to talk about. On this eve of Valentine's Day, where other people are all about the lovey-dovey rom-commy actions, we are going to talk about Madam Web. But not in the critical way that seemingly the internet has decided to vomit all over this movie. We're going to talk about the phenomenon that seems to have struck some of the stars that thought that they were joining the MCU, and how that's a very interesting sort of scenario in Hollywood entertainment of brand recognition, as well as a dropping of the ball from an agent's perspective on the clients that you're representing. And I gotta throw this at you. Have you ever heard of a scenario where a star of any sort of a franchise thought that they were associated with a different franchise than what they were signed up for?
That's not anything I've ever heard of.
Like, ever.
That I can remember.
Yeah. And I'm trying to even figure out a correlation. Like, if you were cast as a background something or other in Indiana Jones, you thought that it was somehow Star Wars because Lucasfilm. That's the only thing that I can think of, but it's never happened as far as I'm aware. Yes, there's some cross promotion. I've seen, things that can happen like that, but
I could think it in terms of I'm doing Star Wars, but you're actually doing a game and not
a movie.
Not the movie.
I see that still sounds more in brand than not, because I mean that's like.
Or how about or still in brand, but you're doing a video game, but you think you're doing a series.
Oh, okay.
Like a voiceover.
Right. Do you have any examples of
I
that?
can't think of anything that has ever happened to any person that I've heard of, because
it should never happen.
It should never happen. I mean, because you have agents and managers, and they should be telling you what you're getting into.
So to that end, considering that, yes, we have this conversation that rages on about superhero fatigue, is it possible that as a genre, superhero movies are still so new that agents have not yet figured out how to parlay the differences of either the comic book origin source or what studio is actually working on these things? Is that possible, that we're still in such a new place with superhero movies for that?
I just can't see that being a thing. Because they read the trades.
Right?
They understand what a Sony movie is. They understand what a Marvel movie is. They understand what a Warner Brothers movie is.
They're supposed to.
Yeah.
At the very least.
And if they don't, I don't know how they got the job.
Mike's cousin.
How is it that you're doing something that you have no idea what you're doing? That the whole thing's just bizarre. I mean, I can understand it from a standpoint of someone buying a ticket, going to watch Madam Web, and wondering why Iron Man's not in it.
Sure, from a consumer standpoint,
yes,
I'll give you that because it's got Marvel, right? Like, we've seen that, but even then though, we've had quite a few Marvel movies that don't have any association with the MCU, and maybe that's kind of the hook. I don't want to say that anyone's taking advantage, but it kind of seems kind of weird that people are not able to follow those individual threads of this is associated with this thing and this is not. Whether or not, even if you go franchises that have crossed over, right? So Alien versus Predator have crossed over as a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. But that's expecting that Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to show up in a Alien movie in the near future. And unless they actually tell that story, which they can definitely tell that story, but I would never expect that thing to happen because of this association of two different brands. I clearly, as a consumer, that's kind of my responsibility to know that difference. So I wouldn't expect it there. But as an actor, even more.
Well, here's where it becomes complicated.
Yeah.
So if you look at the last Venom movie,
right,
and you look at the last Spider-Man movie,
that's fair.
Post-credit scene had
interactions with the MCU.
Yeah, so
do you think that that's a potential selling point, that what happened?
That could very well be.
Okay.
Hey, look, we're going to be part of the MCU. Look what's happening.
Look at what's happening.
And that could have been on the slate
Right.
too, because they could have been trying to tie up everything with the multiverse, which has been somewhat of a disaster.
A little bit.
But I can't see Marvel going, yeah, well, we'll bring Venom and all these other characters in that you've done
some justice to.
Not such a great job with.
They've made money though. That's got to count for something.
Here's the thing. Since Spider-Man's become part of the MCU,
right?
Since the third iteration that Sony's had, Tom Holland. They've done two things that are right, and when I say two, I think I'm being generous. Because the Venom movies, the first one I think is fine. I didn't hate it. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it.
Okay.
So I enjoyed it, yeah. The second one it's short.
It is short. It is very short.
The good thing.
Yes, you don't have to suffer long.
Now, the Spider-Verse, both have knocked them out of the park. Mm-hmm. So they're doing some things right. But when I see something that says Morbius was a better movie.
Ooh.
And that movie was...
It wasn't good.
Atrocious.
At all. It wasn't good.
And I could see where they would, they're making all these movies. Like, I'm not looking forward to Craven.
No. Well...
but I could see them say, maybe not coming right out and saying, hey, we're going to be part of the MCU. They could hint about it.
Right. Is that ethical?
Oh, no.
Like I was going to say, I feel like that's not an ethical move.
You're also talking about Hollywood.
Here's your sign. No, that's true. That's true.
It's just like everything is, everyone has to unionize because they've been taken advantage of for so long. There's not everyone involved with movies from, the actors down, they have to fight for what they get.
Right.
That includes the writers.
Of course.
Of
course.
And now I get that the studios are putting up all the money and it's, they're everyone taking a gamble and I understand that part. But there has to come a point in time where you go, it's share the wealth.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem with things being corporate.
This has got real deep. And
but that's how I feel about it.
But it's true though.
Yeah, they've always shown that if you treat the people that work for you well, they
perform well.
Yeah, and there's a loyalty there.
Put out,
and it goes both ways.
Yeah, they put out exactly what you need them to.
Yeah.
To not just keep you afloat, but to make you excel. I think that's a big deal.
But there have been problems before with the cart before the horse.
Right.
You look at the Universal Monster universe.
Yeah.
Did they get any further than the Mummy? No. But they had these big plans. The last iteration of the DCEU, they did the same thing. They started off with one movie and they decided
we're going to explode all this other stuff that we can do.
And Man of Steel was it was a hit.
It was.
But it wasn't like knocked it out of the park hit.
Not a cornerstone.
No, not the way it should have been. And I really like the movie. I think that Cavill was perfect casting. There may have been some other things that weren't, but I think it worked really well. And had they not stuck with the same director, and I'm not saying that it's Zack Snyder's fault.
Right.
I'm just saying that. They didn't, you don't stick with the same guy to do everything.
Right.
Because Jon Favreau didn't do everything for Marvel.
No, he didn't.
I remember him doing Iron Man and thinking, this is great. And I remember him doing Iron Man 2 thinking, this isn't. So I can see where people want to get involved in that kind of stuff.
Right.
And, Sony's trying to build their own thing. And they're not doing a great job. They're doing at best an okay job.
That's one of the things I think is so interesting is when we coming off of Far From Home and the big shakeup between Disney and Sony and where the rights were going to go with everything. And we, for a moment, we thought we were going to get another Spider-Man reference in the MCU because things were going to break up. I thought Sony was positioned at a far better place than what Marvel was, because the MCU had the MCU, right? And we had, Disney Plus was getting ready to come out, and we knew all that stuff was coming. But there was going to be a sincere separation between Marvel and their association with Netflix. And I'm like, ooh, what greater way for Sony to really plant their flag than to partner with Netflix with the totality of things from the Spider-Man universe. Like, if they did a live-action Spider-Man show, how interesting would that be if they partnered with Netflix and got that done? If you had, what is it, Miller and Lord? If they were, tapped to do something more Spider-Man oriented, but again, with Netflix, it would have been the greatest middle finger that you could ever give to Disney Marvel, for saying like, no, we now own this thing, and we actually can make better things with this because we have the acumen. We showed it in different places, whether it's live action, animation. We can do all kinds of stuff, and this is what they've done.
I think there's a problem with what you were saying, though, because I don't think that Sony has the rights to make TV shows.
Oh,
I think it's
strictly
only
movies.
Movies.
Okay,
yeah.
All right.
Now, I think on the other side of that, I don't know if Marvel has the ability to do that, but
right.
I can see why they wouldn't, because they don't want to confuse people,
right?
And they, because that is exactly what would happen. They would confuse people, and they were like, they would make a TV show, and let's say they made it really well, and it drove people out to see Spider-Man, and it's completely different, and they're like, they have no idea what's going on.
True. Was it Spider-Man freshman year? I don't know if we've gotten any updates on that one.
The animated?
I don't know. Is it animated? I have no idea exactly what it is. Okay.
I was pretty sure it was animated.
Who was producing that? Was that Marvel Studios or was that Sony?
That's a good question.
Okay. All right. Because that's kind of what I was taking that lane from, was I thought that was Sony. I guess it could have been Marvel Studios. I really don't know. But if it was Sony and it's supposed to be a show, as far as I was aware, that was kind of that lane that they had a clear designated space where they could tell some amazing stories, pun intended, that were strictly Spider-Man oriented, and they didn't actually need the MCU if they really buckled down and had the proper storytellers do their thing. But I mean, again, that didn't happen. Instead, they went Venom, not a problem. Okay, yeah. That happened. But then Morbius and now Kraven, I'm like, y'all are scraping bottoms of the barrel, and I don't know why. It's kind of a weird move here. And especially when you have a figure like Miles Morales, who is exploding all over the place, but they're not actively, at least as far as I've been hearing, actively pushing for a live action Miles Morales anything. And granted, last year, we had the strikes that would have impeded anything happening. But, I mean, strike while the iron's hot. You've got, a lot of momentum on your side. How do you let that dry up? That's kind of... and again, I get COVID happened, but then when you come out of it, Madam Web is what you swing with. Morbius is what you swing with. It seems like a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah, I that's the thing though, is that maybe they're not allowed to make a Spider-Man movie without Marvel.
Okay.
That could be part of the contract.
That's wild. That's so wild. I don't know if what value that actually gives Spider-Man to Sony if they are handcuffed like that. And why wouldn't they just go ahead and, or at the very least, I know I've seen somebody say this online, that what would be smart in some capacity is maybe the MCU pulls for Miles Morales, and so that's their Spider-Man, and Sony gets Peter Parker, and they can have that separation. Because I don't think anybody confuses those two. Once you go Miles Morales, you're like, oh, that's Spider-Man, but it's not Peter Parker.
Yeah, but when you're dealing with animation, it's easy to make that. But if they make it live action, then you run the risk of who is this guy?
Which one is that? I mean, do you think that that's what Across the Spider-Verse has done by integrating the two? Because they had references to the live action.
Yeah, I think that they've been able to explain that easily. But I think it's also easier to do with animation. Than,
Okay.
Why are there two Spider-Mans?
Because there are. Multiverse. Keep up. I do think that there's something very interesting, though, with the concept of people and their expectations as creatives, actors even, of joining a larger, more successful branch of something and finding their way into it by like the secondhand cousin. I'm almost like curious as to why, if there was something like, why weren't you aiming for MCU proper, Marvel Studios proper, as opposed to any outskirt anything, whether that was Sony, right now, or I guess that's the only other option would be Sony because Fox is gone.
Well, Fox isn't gone. The name Fox.
Yeah, the Fox name is gone. Yeah. 21st century, you can
20th century films still there.
It's kind of weird, but I don't know. To me, it does kind of harken back to what I call the misappropriated statement of like Blade, the original Blade movie, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's Marvel Studios." I'm like, it's actually more so like a Warner Brothers movie.
Yeah, because it's New Line.
It's New Line, and like it's so funny. Like people are like, "No, he's a Marvel character." I'm like, I get that, but the company that actually produced it was New Line, which was owned by Warner Brothers. Like, it's closer to a DC movie than it is a Marvel movie, guys. And they're like, "No, you can't." And I'm like, but again, I'm being very specific about the production. I'm not confused as to who owns what. That's not the question. I'm being specific. This is who made this movie. Yes, it's a Marvel Comics character, but that also isn't acknowledged until after the hairdresser is acknowledged in the opening credits. So, like, even they knew that they were producing something for a rival company because they really waited to the very last minute to acknowledge Marvel Comics at all in the credits. So I can understand, like, back then people not understanding this, but now, that seems so irresponsible.
So
and from a top-down sort of thing.
This begs the question.
Yeah.
Where was Stan Lee?
Right before they say, what is it? Stan is an executive producer.
No. Where's his cameo?
Ooh. I don't think he has one in that one, does he?
No, he's not in any of those.
No, he's not. So there you go.
How is that possible?
It's not a regular Marvel movie because Stan Lee ain't.
And I brought this up earlier, the title earlier.
Yeah.
At work. I remember watching Man-Thing.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing Stan Lee. But then again, if you ask me what Man-Thing's about, I have no idea. I don't.
It happened?
I don't. Yeah. There was a movie. It was supposed to be a theatrical release, and it got bought by Sci-Fi. And you watch it, and you're like, "Wow,
this happened.
This is what not finished special effects look like." And then you see the Flash, and it happened again.
Which had the better unfinished effects?
Well, I can't remember Man-Thing.
All right, that's fair. But I was gonna say the previs leaked version of X-Men Origins. Did you ever see that? I had a DVD of that, and I can't remember how I got it.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
No.
It's in a weird sort of way. It is a better version of the movie than the finished version of the movie because you go, oh, well, that's just not finished yet. Like that'll be sweet when they actually finish it. But once they finish it, this one becomes so much better because, like, why did y'all do that? Like, that's awful. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's part of the more interesting aspect of this whole bit. Is it possible that Marvel movies, right, have become so popular and almost ubiquitously used as this sort of designation for a superhero movie that consumers and contributors alike need to step their game up in terms of understanding the differences of them. Like, has Marvel won so much that they are Xeroxed now? Like, they're Band-Aid?
I don't see how you you can't tell the difference. I mean, how is it that you get? I understand being confused about certain things, but there's things that are also thrown in your face.
That's kind of what I mean, right?
I mean, it's right there.
Like every
Marvel
time.
Studios.
Every time. Like, it's got its own special logo.
Capstone, the shield, everything. At least that's the one thing that's constant that I can see.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's different. It's different.
Well, and also the biggest problem is that the Marvel movies have become so mediocre.
That's another one.
Yeah.
That's another one.
So it's not hard to get upset with Sony
true.
with, they get some things right, but they get a lot of things wrong. But once again, they're trying to build a universe that kind of already exists, but they're doing a very poor job of it.
Well, I would outright say the issue with Sony is when Into the Spider-Verse does what you're trying to do as an overall better internally than you do as an overall connective thing, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like, that is a huge problem because it is faring far better, both in terms of fan reception, your critical, applications of the multitudes of multiversal spider people. It's doing it so well. And granted, like you said, there is a lot more leeway with animation, but they got away with a spider T-Rex. They got away with a Spider-Man horse. And you guys can't put this together? What? And
if you think about it in terms of animation, you can be more creative.
Yeah.
And not to say that nowadays you can't be, but you can do things like throw in a pig, throw in a black and white character that's only black and white.
Only black and white. What color
I mean,
is this?
you can do that now, as but it probably doesn't look the same.
Right.
It probably looks super cheesy. And you have a animation style that's not.
It's unorthodox.
Yes.
But
it works.
It works. Yeah.
I mean, I looked at it at first. I'm like, I don't know if I can watch this. And granted, now it's been basically the only animated movies I've watched since Incredibles 2.
I mean...
And that I didn't even watch in the theater. I watched it at home.
I hated that movie, but we won't talk about that.
And I only made it halfway through when I fell asleep, and I decided not to go back to it because I love the first one so much.
Smart man. That is definitely me too. Okay. We didn't talk about the critical reception of Madam Web because we haven't seen it yet. Which are you anxious to do so? Are you eager to do so? Are you willing to watch it? Your face says it all. All right.
I will watch it.
Okay.
I can't tell you when I'll watch it.
Okay.
But like, I'm just not. I'm not in a hurry.
I got you. I'm gonna take my daughter to see it. She's been excited about it since.
That's fair,
right? And I am curious, considering another, we'll say female teen-centric movie that we did enjoy watching it, which is The Marvels, because it kind of fits perfectly for her age demographic. She's 14. The Marvels rocked well with her. And I'm curious if this will do anything of the sort, or is that also part of that brand piece where people are seeing, they're like, oh, well, maybe it's like the Marvels, and then it's not.
Well, this is one, and I don't want to change the subject that much, but this is one thing I want you to ask your daughter.
Yeah.
Had she not seen the shows, would she have felt the same way about the movie?
Ooh, that's critical.
You have two characters that were introduced in the shows.
That's true. Because Carol is honestly the weakest link in the Marvels in terms of association. And I would think that's absolutely true with my kid.
I love Brie Larson.
Yeah.
I do not like her in this role. I didn't buy it in the first one, and fine, in the Avengers she was in it for so brief, and it just, like, I loved her in Scott Pilgrim.
Yes.
Granted, it wasn't a big role or anything, but
she was wonderful.
But she was great, and I think everybody was great in that movie. But she's supposed to be sarcastic, and it never hits for me.
Right. Well, there's a difference between sarcasm and soapbox sarcasm. Like there's a difference, because one is I'm amongst you and I'm going to be just as biting as you are, but if you're in a soapbox, you're almost like punching down at people, and that's kind of how her Captain Marvel read to me. Was she was so on guard and punching down right away that in the right places it misses, because she's been doing it the whole time. You know, it's like if she had a really good clapback, because she's used a clapback 7 times already, it misses the mark of being phenomenal, because I'm over it. Like you've been doing this the whole time. That was my issue. But again, for my kid, I don't think she ever was like, Captain Marvel was so great. Now, Ms. Marvel, she loved. It's right up her alley.
Yeah.
Age demographic wise, perfect. She dug WandaVision, so Tiana Parrish's iteration of Spectrum, she dug it. Like I like her. So yeah, I'm curious. And I guess this will be a great test, because there is not a TV show lead into Madam Web. We'll be able to look at it and go, was that the difference? Like, is that, did you need a little bit more understanding of who all these people are to care? So,
well, and there's one person of color of
yes.
it's 4, right? It's Madam
it's
Web and 3
Spider Ladies.
Yeah. I would be curious if it comes down to which one she relates
that's a really good one. Yeah. Okay.
And that's not to say that she can't relate to.
No, but it is interesting to see which one out of the bunch. So that's a good one. Okay. I'm going to have my daddy cap on and be like, let me ask you questions after this. Just cause
you might get a questionnaire ready for her.
I might have to.
What kind of cinema score would you give this?
Yeah. We're going to go to Cahoots and, and test her, see how she does. Yeah, I think it'll be awesome. Yeah. The Kahoot, the online thing, not the place.
Well, that's good, because that place doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
It's now housing.
Really?
Yeah. That whole area is like housing.
I wonder if they know what it used to be. That's amazing.
I think everybody knows what it used to be.
It still smells like it. Okay, that's probably a good place to end this episode. Thank you guys for tuning into the Chatterverse. Once again, where 2 gents are sharing their 2 cents on pop media. This has been a fun episode. I like this one. This is gonna be great to chop this up. I can't wait. Where can folks find you online, sir?
Well, I'm at Nerdy also, which is fairly new for Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. But I think I'm going to create a Blue Sky, since they've opened that up.
Oh, word. Okay. Do you need the invite still?
No, they dropped the invite.
Dropped it. Okay,
yeah.
That's dope. All right. Well, we'll look for you there. I'm always at Vantage In-House on all forms of social media, so definitely look me up there. And thank you guys for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time. Peace.